This episode is powered by NHL Sense Arena. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome back to Our Kids Play Hockey. Another great episode for you today. I'm Elias, and I'm joined by Christie, Casciano, Burns. Mike Benelli is on assignment in Norway today. He's on his way to Stavanger, Norway. I'm going to guess it's 5 hours ahead, so it's probably like way past lunchtime over there. Anyway, it's Christie and I here today, and we've got an episode today that's centered around one of the hottest topics in youth hockey, but because we talked about it before, we're going to approach it from a very different angle, because depending on when you're listening, your tryouts may be over, they may be right around the corner, or you may be waiting to hear where your kid landed, right? No matter where you're at on that process, if you've been around youth hockey long enough, you've probably heard things like, the teams were already picked, or my kid never had a chance, or the evaluations weren't fair. We've heard all of those. The reality is tryouts can be one of the most emotional times of the year for the players, for the parents, for the coaches too, for the organizations. Temperatures go up, they go down. So today's guest spends his days helping youth hockey associations build smarter, more objective evaluation processes and more transparent communication with the families. Just saying that out loud almost makes you go, about time. He's part of a group called TeamGenius. It's a platform used by hockey organizations across North America to improve tryouts, player evals, and long-term player development, something we all want, right? But today's conversation, again, it's not about the technology. It's about creating a youth hockey experience that players, coaches, and parents and organizations can trust. So please join me in welcoming Gabe Malinski to our show today. Gabe, welcome to Our Kids Play Hockey.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Like you said, it's a polarizing topic, and some call me crazy for being a part of it every day. But really happy to be just having this conversation, and hopefully people can get some good stuff.
We don't think you're crazy.
Oh, no.
Crazy.
No one on this show is crazy. Gabe, thank you so much. I'm so excited that you're here with it. What a wealth of knowledge, because, Lee talked about it. Everybody listening knows tryouts can be such a trying time for parents. Your kid's stomach's in knots, you're pacing, waiting for the list to come out. Did my kid make this team that he wants more than anything to make? And you, now lucky for us, you've watched countless hockey tryouts and evaluations, so you're a wealth of knowledge. So our first question as we get into it, what do you think is the biggest mistake that you see associations making when it comes to tryouts?
Oh, what a great first question.
We're going to start right out the gate.
Yeah.
Here we go.
That's why people listen.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the biggest things that we've seen across the last 10 years of helping associations with just tryouts, in-season evaluations, they try to find one system that works and not adjust it year after year. They think they have the magic recipe to do an evaluation. And many times that first year that a tryout coordinator comes in, is put in charge of tryouts, they try to gather too much information and they forget the purpose that they're running those tryouts. The purpose of tryouts is to form teams. Ideally, you can justify team placements afterwards. You can give some feedback if parents are asking for that feedback. But simplifying the process is your way to make sure that you don't overdo it, you don't overwhelm the coaches, you don't lose track of the important part of tryouts, forming teams. So just simplify the process. That's I think one of the biggest things that we've seen for sure is trying to capture 5-10 piece of criteria. That's not realistic in an hour-long tryout.
All right, so, Gabe, let's break that down. What should be the top 5, and what's this simple way to process all of this?
Well, it varies by age group. I'm not going to pretend like there's one set of criteria that's best. At the younger age groups, sometimes it's just 1 or 2 criteria that you want to capture. Skating, obviously that's going to be number 1 for those younger kids. If you can skate well, you're going to be able to skate circles around the other kids. You're going to be able to get up the ice with the puck, and you're going to be able to do some good things for your team. So skating is for sure that top criteria across any of the 31 million scores that we've captured in the app. I would say at the older age groups, you maybe want to break down skating into speed, into backward skating, so you can ensure that your defenders can keep up with some of those top forwards. And one thing that we always tell organizations when we're working with them too is when you are looking at setting up a tryout process, you need to look at the numbers that you have. If you're a smaller organization, you don't need as many criteria because you don't need as much differentiation. But if you do have 100 or 200 kids that are going to be showing up to that tryout, you're going to have more overlapping scores if you have fewer criteria or fewer days. So deciding how many criteria often depends on the amount of players that you have trying out.
All right. So that's really good formula to follow. So base your tryouts on your numbers. How big is your tryout? How many kids are showing up? And keep it simple, especially at the younger ages. Skating is key. Very helpful.
I think too, Gabe, we did an episode not that long ago where we broke down benchmarks for each age group, right? And they were somewhat broad, but the idea is, okay, by the end of 10U, by the end of 12U, or coming into 10U and 12U, this is what you should be able to do, maybe not be able to do. And from a coaching standpoint, this is what should be taught and not be taught. And I think what happens a lot of times is everyone's coming to try out thinking, I got to make the top team. And I think that if I may add to this, that's one of the mistakes that people make in a tryout is if I don't make that top team, my life is over.
Right.
And because we get asked about this all the time, I always say, well, who's coaching what team? Who's the coaches? What coach does your kid get along with the best? Not just get along, but like who teaches your kid the best, right? Where is your kid at with these benchmarks, right? And I've seen it before where, and again, we'll use the younger ages, like 12U or 10U. A kid comes in, unbelievable shot, just got a heavy, awesome, super shot. Kid can't skate. And it's like, kid needs to work on their skating. That is really what, and you know what? Our second team has a great skating coach. Well, I need to be on the top team. And it's like, man, we are missing the point. And I remember saying, if you can't get to the puck, you're not going to have that big shot. So it doesn't.
That's true.
So the perspective on tryouts and the FOMO that is created by not getting to the top. I'm not going to tell the parents listening, look, you shouldn't be disappointed, or your kid shouldn't be disappointed if they don't make the top team. I think that's part of the process and part of the growth as a human being is making and not making the team you want to. But I also think part of that process has to be, you got a really great coach this year. You got a coach that's really going to teach you. You're going to be a top player on this team. You're going to get the ice time. We need to look at things like that as well when we do a tryout. So with that train of thought, that is just my thoughts. Gabe, what is something that you've noticed when somebody walks away and goes, man, that was a great tryout, right? What goes right? It's the opposite question. We talked about the things we miss. What makes a fantastic tryout that a parent's going to walk away going, that was a great eval?
Yeah. Well, when we're talking with these board members, that's typically who we're working with to set up the tryout process for an organization. We try to remind them of their responsibility. And their biggest responsibility, number one, is to form the teams. But if they want to give an exceptional process to their coaches, to their players, to their parents, you need to remember each of the different stakeholders and what you're trying to do for them. For those evaluators, you want to give them a process that is simple, that is efficient for them, that allows them to keep their eyes up on the ice as they're doing the evaluations and not have them concerned about missing a player or potentially just not scoring very accurately. So making sure you have an efficient process for your coaches. For the players, you're trying to give them a fair chance at making that team, right? So making sure it's fair, having, whether it's third-party evaluators or trying to take the bias out of the evaluations. And for the parents, be transparent about what you're doing. Like tell them that you're using an app or that you are going to be giving feedback to those that request it or that you're not. And no matter what your process entails, just keeping those in mind, those people in mind, and afterwards asking for feedback and taking that feedback and making it actionable, doing something about it the following year to make it even better.
Yeah, I'll say real quick too, just I love you bring up bias and things like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Christie. I want to say this, that I think the key that you just said there is that communication. And I don't think enough organizations have open communication. The truth is this, and it's actually a guarantee. Someone's going to be upset after an eval. Someone's going to be upset. And I think that is actually less people than people that are content or will accept the results. And a lot of decisions are made on the 2 or 3 parents that are going to lose their mind if that kid doesn't make the tryout. And we can't base our communication on, I don't want to deal with that. I think the more you communicate with parents, the more transparent you are with certain aspects, doesn't have to be everything, the easier you're going to have with the fallout after an eval. Like, no, we told you how we were evaluated. All right.
Yes.
And I do believe, this is me personally, that explanations are a good thing. I think it's okay for evaluators and coaches to have uncomfortable conversations with kids and parents about why they did or did not make a team. And I think that conversation, and Christie, I know you'll have thoughts on this too. The conversation, the uncomfortable conversation of, listen, you didn't make the team. I think you need to work on your skating. This is what I saw that made me think that. That conversation sets that kid on a path, even if they're irate, of, you know what, the coach said I need to work on this. Now they're focused on what they need to work on. This is assuming the evaluator knows what they're talking about too. I should say that.
Yeah.
All right. They're not making an excuse here. But man, I'd rather a kid be a little angry at me and say, I need to work on my skating, than the whole season, I should have been on the AA team.
Sure.
That's why that communication piece is invaluable.
Right. And, I think there's a way they can also let a kid down easy. Okay, you didn't make this team because you need to work on your skating. If you get a little faster, it's going to, and explain to them in detail what it is that they can do better, rather than, okay, you didn't make the team. Move on. That is tough. And I think here's an opportunity where kids can really learn and grow and not have that bitter feeling, but just kind of relay that to them in a positive way can be so helpful. It can be a really important growth experience for kids, rather than just say, okay, you didn't make the team, move on, we're done with you. But I think that explanation is, don't you think so, Gabe?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be naive to sit here and pretend like every organization should be giving feedback or have the data on their players. Some organizations, they don't need to, because they're just looking for those top 20 players to fill a roster. And so I think there's a time and place for each. But for the average, and I come from Minnesota, the Minnesota hockey system, it's a community-based organization. I played for Lakeville Hockey Association growing up. And when we would not make that, I was kind of an A-B bubble player. And those times that I didn't make the team, I asked for the feedback, and they didn't have it. They didn't have the data.
It's frustrating.
We weren't pushing back to be rude. We just wanted to know what I should be working on this summer. Because I wanted to make that team the following year. So now to be able to help organizations give that feedback, I think is super awesome and helps me feel like I'm giving back. But even when you go out to a club program, right? East Coast, West Coast, wherever it is, if it's not city-based, you maybe don't have that responsibility to your community. But if you want to help your players get better and you want to add and provide more value to the players and attract the talent, you want to have the data to give feedback, even to those kids that made the team. Like, great, you made this team, but I still want you to work on these 2 or 3 things.
That's
the last piece I want to say there too is, as I mentioned earlier, people try to collect all this data at a tryout, but I think the better place to get that data is actually throughout the season from the coaches.
Agreed.
Give them a way to do the in-season evaluations, have a template, have those benchmarks that you mentioned, Lee, and have the coaches check in with those players once or twice a year to make sure they're progressing as they should be.
I love that you're bringing this up, because in other tryout episodes we talk about how, look, the whole regular season, not necessarily a tryout, but like, we're watching you the whole season. Like, we know where your ability is at. Like, it is insanely rare. And it really is, that a kid that has been at one level the whole year is going to show up to a tryout and be a completely different, elevated player. I'm not saying impossible, but rare. Right? A lot of that depends when the tryouts are, right? So that process throughout the season, it is, in my opinion, and it's work, but it's the responsibility of the coaching staff to give that feedback. Like, one of the things I want to do with the youth team I'm going to be coaching this year is, I'm not going to call it a report card process, but some sort of, hey, here's where you were, here's where you're at, here's where I'd like you to be, right? For those players. I always say this too, in business, not much less hockey. If you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? Right? It's very powerful for a young kid. And there's a responsibility, by the way, to be very honest with the kids, coaches. I have to say that, because you can't just throw stuff out at them. But to say, hey, I'd like to see your skating get to this point in a few weeks. Right? And what you got to be careful with is, people will get more ice time if I do that. Whoa. That's not what I'm talking about. We're trying to develop you as a hockey player, right? First off, in youth hockey, you should be getting ice time no matter what, right? Talking the younger ages. But I love that you brought that up. Look, I just did a high-level training camp for a national team, all right? And we did a evaluation process that dealt with more basics than people would think, skating, passing, hockey IQ. And we based these evaluations on the time that we see, and we really look at each player. The key, though, and this is the positive, is after the 2-day training camp, we did 4 hours straight of one-on-one sit-down evaluations with the players. Like, here's what we saw, here's what we like. Do you have any questions? We showed them ways they could improve on the aspects that we wanted to improve on. And not all the feedback, obviously, was positive, right? Like, I'd say most players got, here's what I'd like you to work on. The result of that meeting was incredibly positive. Mm-hmm. All right. And again, not every player heard what they wanted to hear.
Sure.
All right. But I've gotten nothing but, hey, I really appreciate this. No one's ever told me this. And I'm going to really take it upon myself this season to work on these things because I want to make your team in the future. Right. They're not comfortable conversation. It's never easy to look somebody in the eye and say, hey, listen, I think your compete level's too low. You've got some great skating ability. I'm giving you a different example, but I didn't think you hunted the puck down when you needed to. We got to find ways to work on that. You know what they did? They said, well, how do I work on that? That's a phenomenal question.
Yeah, that's great.
That's the growth mindset.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's the growth mindset. And it is a tough conversation. Let's be honest here.
Always.
It's not easy to hear, especially when you're thinking that your skating level is in a dynamite position, then an evaluator objectively tells you.
Christie, I've never walked into one of those conversations going, oh, I can't wait to tell this kid they suck at puck handling.
Yeah,
like, exactly. It's never happened in my life.
Hard. It's hard to hear. It's hard to, share
that's
that.
My job. That's my job, is to help them get better. If you're not feeling that, you're not going to get better. Adversely, if you're telling a kid how great they are all the time.
Yeah.
Right? We had kids at training camp that were phenomenal. And I said, look, you got really high scores across the board. And then I might say, what do you think you need to work on? Right. And anyway, those conversations are key.
And I think that's important for parents, too, to jump in there, too, to help support the idea of, this is honest feedback. You need this. If you're serious about this, if you want to get better, you need to absorb it, think about it, and figure out ways that you could improve. Well, that's where that parent support is so critical.
I'll tell you
both. Instead of like bashing they don't know what they're talking about. Yeah. You're the best. You know what I mean?
On that note, Christie, so when I'm dealing with youth athletes specifically, I don't mind their parents sitting in on that feedback.
Good.
Because I'll tell you why. Because what I'm looking for is, and I'll say it positively, 90% of parents, I'll see them looking at their kid, nodding, going, this is good feedback, right?
Yeah.
But there's always that minute, they're like, well, you obviously didn't see them skate because that's not my kid. And I just go, noted. Okay, this parent does not take feedback well. All right.
Duly noted. Noted.
Yeah. It's tripping over the cones out there, but they're a great skater. Yeah.
Right. Gabe, I wanted to go back to something that you said a few minutes ago about evaluators. You said it's really important to make it easy for them. Are teams messing up there? Are they making it too complicated for the evaluator?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's too many criteria. Okay. Sometimes it's just not being on the same page on even something as simple as like we're scaling on a score. We're scoring on a scale of 0 to 5. Mm-hmm. Is 5 the best or is 1 the best? Like even there's some miscommunication like that then causes a kid to make the wrong team or at least causes confusion internally. So we've seen a lot of different nightmare scenarios, and communication with those evaluators is just
I got ones
so
across the board. Across the board.
Exactly. Yeah. Isn't that something? So even just the simple, this is what 1 means, this is what 5 means. They can mess up there. Really?
Yeah, something else I'll bring up.
That would be disastrous.
Yeah, it's tough to hear about because we know how important it is for the programs, whether it's just growth of the sport. We all love the sport of hockey. We want to see it grow.
Sure.
And that's not going to help participation if we're not having efficient tryout processes. The tryout is like that's the first impression from a lot of these kids, a lot of these parents. So you want to give them a good experience. And the thing I was going to mention is here in Minnesota, at least, and I know this is up in Canada, some of the East Coast programs too, after the first day of tryouts, usually it's a skill day, they will then split up into like group 1, group 2, with the top kids being in that group 1, lower kids being in group 2. Some organizations that are big enough have group 3, 4, 5, you name it. We've seen it in the systems, but they will forget to tell the evaluators whether or not they are scoring that kid based on how they are compared to the whole age group or just that specific group. So all of a sudden, a kid in that last group, let's say the weaker group, they are getting a 5, and then they put that into an Excel spreadsheet, and that then makes that kid look better than a kid who got a 3 in the top group. Yeah. So you need to do a lot of planning, and it's not easy to make all these decisions, but preparation, just like the players need to be doing, is just as important for the board members.
These are fantastic points.
Good lesson.
Yeah, like when I do, if I'm running an eval, I always put a rubric on everything of not just, hey, 5 is good and 1 is not, 1 needs improvement, but I actually will describe like this. These are the characteristics of a 5. It's not just 5 top level. It's proficient, mastery, and by the way, we don't give out a lot of 5s, right? But if you're giving this kid a 5, this is what that means, right? And I love that you brought up the groups, because we do that sometimes as well. And you've got to be specific of top player in group B.
Yes.
And then maybe even gave like a recommendation, like looking to move to group A next year, right? Like that gives you kind of a clear understanding of like not in group A, right? And aspects like that. I think also too, when it comes to evaluators, good communication from the coaches watching to the evaluators on the ice also, right? The coaches on the ice. I meant to say coaches on the ice, because they're watching too. One of the pieces of communication kind of continuing around this episode out is I don't just let my coaches go on the ice in an evaluation and do whatever they want. I have a meeting before and I say, look, these are the skill sets that we're going to be essentially grading on. And I need to create drills that are going to allow us to see that happen on the ice. And again, just going back to the eval I just did, believe it or not, Mike Benelli, our other co-host, was one of the coaches that I had on the ice. And we had that conversation of, hey, look, these are the things that I'm looking for. And he came up with a fantastic plan, communicated the plan to me. And I know within each drill, okay, when they do this action, that's when I'm going to be grading this on my sheet. Okay. Or this result or this lack of a result in a drill will help me see that. That has to happen. I don't know how a coach can be in the gantry watching an evaluation, not knowing what drills are about to happen, and just going, okay, well, I'm going to evaluate skating on this drill when it's a passing drill. It's like, I've seen this happen, right? That communication has to be there. Adversely, goaltending. Right. I had a really great goaltending coach come out to this eval, one of the top in the area. What are you looking for? I'm evaluating these 5 things. He goes, gotcha. Say no more. He goes, I'll keep an eye on them too. There was only 5 goaltenders. And we had a great conversation and evaluated them together. That's how these things should run. It's a little extra work from a volunteer level. Okay. But it's essential. And I think a lot of times people show up to these evals and it's, all right, they're going to be watching up there. Got this coach doing the drills. You guys just write out who you want.
Right.
It's like we're failing the kids if we do that. You said it perfectly. It's a first impression for your organization.
Yeah.
Right. And you know how we always say you only get one chance to make a first impression? In hockey, you actually get to do it every single year.
Yep.
That's right. That's right. Important to remember that. I've got another big question for you. So every parent wants tryouts to be objective. No bias. Is it really possible to think that we can remove bias from tryouts? Is that even a reality?
One of the trends we're actually seeing in hockey tends to follow somewhere between 5 and 10 years behind football, for example, some of the bigger sports with trends. But one of the big trends lately is combine data. And so at tryouts, we're seeing organizations start to capture timed drills with timing gates, no stopwatches, because nobody trusts stopwatches, especially not parents.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, Lee, you mentioned like in those post tryout meetings, if you have them, having not just a scale of 0 to 5, how good is this kid at skating, but this kid did a blue line to blue line time of this, and it ranked this in their age group. That's a quantitative objective metric that you can show them. There's no bias here. There's no bias.
Awesome.
No, that's a great point. It's like that's their score. That's their score.
It is. That's their score. You can do the same thing for shot speed, for some other things like shooting accuracy with the shooter tutors and all that fun stuff. But at the end of the day, the hard part about hockey is it's such a skill-based sport. I mean, you can't even, you could be the fastest player in the league. You can have the best shot, but if you can't execute in the game, you can't get that right angle to get that shot off, or you can't take that puck and move it in the right ways to get it up ice or find your teammate that's open. Hockey IQ is one of those that are so underestimated, and you can't, that's not an objective metric. There's almost no way to, some organizations are trying to do that, right? Some of the AI systems out there, Instat and whatever else it might be, you can look and lean on some of that data, but at the end of the day, you need those expert evaluators. And the only way to truly take out the bias, in my opinion, is to find either third-party evaluators who have nothing to do with your organization, don't know any of the kids, or us growing up in Lakeville Hockey Association, we had the neighboring organization. Their coaches would trade with our organization, and our coaches would score their kids, their coaches would score our kids. And that's one way that we see people do it without actually needing to financially invest in that process.
Yeah, that seems a lot more feasible.
Yes,
you know?
Sure. It's feasible. And it's like, depending on who you are listening to this, that idea terrifies you or excites you. There's no in between on that. But the truth is this: we've talked about this too, Gabe. If you wanted a real unbiased evaluation, not only would you have independent evaluators who are not involved with the organization, every kid would be in the same color jersey or similar color jersey with a different number, no name. Like, you wouldn't know who they are.
No stickers on the helmets. Yep.
Nothing. And again, people would lose their mind in that scenario. But like, for the audience listening, and this is why I'm bringing it up, that's what an unbiased tryout would look like. Right. So when you say at home, I wish these were less biased. I want you to understand that, like, there's also an opposite to that. Right. I do think they need to lean that way. All right. Because there are also intangibles and evals. You know, a kid, you know, the family. I just wrote a note down here for the parents listening. Right. One of the things I know I talk a lot about with my coaching and my coaching staff is the difference between a hockey player and a kid who's playing hockey. All right. Those are different things. All right. And there's no skating drill at tryout that's going to show me that. Right. And by the way, I also say this too. Neither one of those things is a right or wrong thing. These are kids we're talking about, right? If a kid's playing hockey for just enjoyment, again, a kid who plays hockey, there's nothing wrong with that. All right. Adversely, if there's a kid who's a hockey player, and that means that they are dying, get in the corner, they're obsessed. There's nothing wrong with that. Right. But I've got to see that on the ice somehow. Right. Or maybe you don't see it on the ice, Gabe. Right. Maybe you said that's what I'm seeing throughout the season. That kid's a gamer. Also, as a coach, the transformation of a kid from someone who plays hockey into a hockey player, right? I can think about, especially when I do the high level hockey, when I get we'll say like a teenager come into the mix with 20-year-olds, which happens in national team training camp, right? There's a lot of this. Like there's the youth hockey mentality that comes in when it can't be there, or the idea that, I'm a hockey player, but you're not hungry enough yet. I also ask myself, do you have the potential to grow into this version of yourself? Now, to me, Gabe, that's real coaching, right? Is, can I help you find your potential? Because I'm driven to do that with every athlete I coach. And I think that some coaches are dismissive, and it blows my mind, especially in youth hockey. Well, that kid's just lazy, doesn't care. Well, maybe true. Don't get me wrong. That may be true. There are kids out there like that. I look at a kid like that going, but is there more there that we can get out of that kid? Because that's what I want, right? So I'm bringing this back to evaluations. We've talked a lot about what coaches should be looking for, what evaluators should be looking for. What should the coach's mindset be? And I'm not talking about the evaluators so much. I'm talking about the coach's mindset be when they're looking at a player saying, that kid didn't score that great, but I can get them from a 2 to a 3, right? Or a 3 to a 4, whatever the scale is, right? How do you do that? What's your thoughts on that, I should say?
Well, I think this goes back to a little bit what we talked about earlier, the coach evaluations throughout a season.
Yeah.
If you can lean on the evaluations from last year's coaching staff, you can say, this kid in his technical skills, he was pretty good. And he was pretty similar to the rest of his team, kind of a bubble player. But the intangibles that coach scored that player on, work ethic, compete, attitude, leadership, coachability, all of those intangibles that you're not going to see at an hour-long tryout. If you can look at that, that's how you can then help to make sure you have the right kids on those teams.
Right.
And that coach, then, if you can provide that data from the tryout or from last year's coach feedback, he or she can take that data and know exactly where that player needs to develop. Like, this kid has an attitude problem. Let's address this up front with them. Let's make sure that they're.
Sorry, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm just thinking out loud here because you're making me think, right? I think another part of this too, Gabe, is like having the right coach in the right place, right? So we don't talk about this enough on the show. There's different types of coaches, right? There's coaches that are much more win orientated, which is not, again, it's obviously hockey is about the life skills. We've talked about that over 500 episodes. You all know that. But sometimes you want a coach who's a little more win focused. Right. There's also coaches that are more people focused, more development focused, and again, can take a kid that maybe has a little bit of a harder time learning and help that kid. Right. So I'm just thinking here too out loud about how picking the right coach for the right team is also pretty important. And we always come into the season knowing who the coaches are already, which I'm wondering now, is that the right way to do it? Right. We know who the AA coach is already. Well, that guy's not great at developing players. He's great at tactical stuff. Again, that's a topic for another episode. But I think about that too, right? We're evaluating the kids. What about evaluating the coaching to make sure we have the right coach in the right spot?
Yeah, we see that across all sports. Some people call it coach mentorship programs, where there's a coaching director who will give feedback to the coaches throughout their season and make sure that they're doing the right things, showing up on time, communicating with the parents and players, and making sure that they're developing too. That coach shouldn't be stagnant. They need to be getting better in every facet of the game, because that's what makes the players better. And that goes all the way up to the AHL level, right? Like, even the AHL is a development league. Like, those coaches should know how to develop players for the NHL. Not until you get to the NHL or the Olympics do you really have. All that matters is winning for those leagues. But those are the 2 or 3, that really are at that level.
All right. I'd really like to get into the topic of helping players be their very best at tryouts, because nerves can get the best of you, right? So players walking into tryouts, help them prepare physically, mentally. How can they put on the best show possible at tryouts? How can they be performing at their best when nerves come into play?
One of the things that I love to look back on, I have 2 brothers who still play. One of them's with the Avalanche, other one out in Vermont playing Division I. And so I wasn't the best hockey player growing up, but I saw everything that they did that got them to that next level. And the biggest thing for them was they were always prepared for tryouts. They put in the work throughout the season or the off season to make sure they had that stack of proof that they are a player who should be on the top team. Their work ethic was second to none. So that for sure is, I think, number 1. Number 2, that week of tryouts, like, make sure you're feeling properly. Make sure you're not overworked going into tryouts. Make sure that you have mentally prepared. I wouldn't be on a screen for, a few hours at least before your tryouts. Night before, get a good night's sleep. Electrolytes, carbs. I mean, people know this. They just don't always put it in.
They don't always do it.
Yeah.
True.
So do everything you can to prepare for that moment, and you're going to be so much more confident going into it, knowing that you are a player who should be on that top team. So I always like to lead with that when I'm talking to athletes or coaches who are trying to prepare their players for tryouts. But once you get to that check-in desk, just making sure you're there on time, making sure that your skates are sharpened, that your stick is taped beforehand. Don't switch anything up either. Like, don't treat that tryout any differently than you would have treated a game in the summer or the off season.
Right.
And then just do your thing. When you're out there, don't be nervous. You're a hockey player. You know what to do. And it's just at that point executing. The nerves are going to be there, of course, at any tryout. But that's just deep breaths and do your thing.
Gabe, I always say,
and I like what you
nerves
said.
are there because you care. You're nervous because you care. If you were not nervous, look, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the best player in your organization. When you show up to an eval, you're going to feel something.
If you didn't, you shouldn't be there.
Right. If it's you should be at a different level if you're not feeling something. Actually, I would make the case that the kids who show up not feeling something do not have a good eval. All right. And I've seen top players show up going, I'm going to make the top team and not make the top team. The other thing you said too is this, and I really want to, parents, I want you to share this with your kids, right? It's not going to happen where the mindset is, well, I'm going to show up and I'm just going to work harder than I've ever worked in my life and make this team. That's an all the time thing. And that's where I think people miss the mark, right? You don't show up to a tryout and just all of a sudden you're a different player. I said that early in the episode. This comes from continued mindset, physical ability. You're showing up to the games, the practices, the same way consistently as often as you can, right? You're not always going to have a great day. I'm not saying this is like all the time, 1,000,000%. But I'm saying if you do that consistency every time you're on the ice or try to, when the eval rolls around, it's going to be there. You'll be able to tap into it. Tom Brady always talks about, he didn't care if it was a rep at practice, in the middle of the regular season, or the Super Bowl. It was always the Super Bowl in his mind. And gang, I believe him when he says that. When you watch his practice footage, right? And again, Tom Brady's a high standard, obviously, but when you watch that guy play, it didn't matter what he was doing. He was at the level all the time. Kids probably will not reach that level at 10, but we can encourage them to do that by saying things like, hey, how you approach practice is how you're going to approach a game. How you approach your games is how you're going to approach big moments. How you approach big moments is how you're going to succeed. Kids will take that stuff in. And it will take, just one disclaimer, parents, it's going to take you 477 times to say it before it clicks. But that's our job.
It will click.
It will click.
For 177th time, it'll click. I love what you said about kids showing up on time. That is so important because I've seen some of these tryouts where kids come in at the last minute, they're disorganized, and they have a terrible eval because they're rushed, they're not thinking clearly. But just some of those simple things about being on time, being polite, making sure you're carrying in your own bag, not having mom and dad carry it in.
That one bugs me.
All those little things that a coach sees that it's going to say, wow, this kid's on the ball. I think our team would benefit with someone like that on our team.
So my dad actually coached us kids growing up, and he had 3 rules that he taught to hundreds of kids over the years, and it still sticks with many of us. That first rule, you got to listen to the coach, right? In a tryout scenario, listen to the coach, because if you do that first drill wrong, you're the first guy up or gal up, and you're doing that wrong, that's going to look really bad to the evaluators. So make sure you listen to the coaches. Second one, always work your hardest. And that third rule is have fun. At a tryout, it's still hockey, right? Like don't be goofing around too much, but make sure you're having fun out there, because most likely throughout the season at a game, hopefully you're having fun then too. So that's, I think, 3 rules that apply to practice, games, tryouts, you name it. It's 3 great rules you can follow.
Yeah, it's funny, Gabe. What I tell my kids for tryouts, again, they're on the younger end. Well, not so much anymore, right, Christie? Like my son's almost 13 now. But early on, what I did, and I do like to share this advice. It's not for everybody, but when we were going to evals, I didn't paint it up that big in their minds. I wasn't listen, this is the evaluation that's going to choose your future. Like I didn't do things like that. I just said things like, hey, listen, you're going to skate around with your friends. You got to work hard. Same things you said. You got to work hard. People are going to be watching you. They're going to be evaluating you just to see where you're at, right? And it's going to involve picking teams for next year. But no, it's no big deal. Go out there and just do your best. You have to do your best. And they match that energy of, I'm going to go out there and do my best. And if they didn't, I would tell them. But I didn't paint it up bigger than it was because I don't want them to be a ball of anxiety for the eval. And the reason I do that, parents, is because by the time the evals actually matter, later down the line, they don't matter as much as you think when they're younger. I don't know how to say that enough. Yeah. But down the line, when they do matter, they know that.
Sure.
When you're 15, you know exactly where you're going, right? But I've built up we don't approach tryouts or evals with this level of anxiety. You will show up prepared. I will help you be prepared, and you will do what you do, and what happens will happen.
Right.
I think that's how you got to prepare your kids at a younger age. Okay. They will put enough pressure on themselves when they're older.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right? And speaking to the parents too, I think there's some of those responsibilities that we laid out for the players that are your responsibilities as a parent. You're the one that's driving them to the tryout. You're responsible for getting them there on time. You can help them prepare with the right foods, with electrolytes, with different hydration tactics. That's a lot of that is on you to teach them. And unfortunately, hockey, it's difficult. I had plenty of experiences of this growing up, but a few parents kind of overstep their boundaries, right? And
how so?
Be specific.
Do tell.
Everybody knows what I'm talking about, but I'll say it. Yes. So what I've seen is the parent will be the loudest one in the room after tryouts. They'll be angry at the board. They'll maybe wonder, even if it's their kid might have made the top team, but they're upset about some other kid who made the team.
Sure.
Like, that is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to get your kid there and trust the coach is going to do a good job. And when that kid gets home, be nothing but positive for that player, because you have the opportunity to either burn that kid out or to help them develop and be a support system that they need at home. The work is going to be done in the locker room and on the ice, and that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to make sure the kid has the resources that they need to be a better player.
Yeah.
Well, if my kid didn't make the team, it's because the team was already picked.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Right. You've heard that a few times, I'm sure.
Oh, many times. Yeah. And that's where having the data after a tryout for a board or a coach is so important, because you can justify those player placement decisions.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was just going to add to that too, that, I don't know how to say this nicely, so I'm just going to kind of say it. Like, goes back to the communication piece.
Sure.
Parents, I don't care how long you played. I don't care what level you played. If you don't know what they're evaluating on, you do not know what's going on. Right. And you can sit in the stands as a ball of anxiety, watching and guessing everything that they're doing. Or look, I've seen parents like, well, he's looking at that kid, not looking at my kid. You have no idea what's going on because you don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on when I'm at an eval. I mean, I can guess, but I try not to do that. So again, kind of rounding things out a little bit. That's why it's important that coaches and organizations do explain to parents, here's what we're looking for. And look, that can also be done in an email. All right. I think it's better to be done in person.
Sure.
It can be done in email or a handout when you walk in. Like, these are the things we're looking for.
Yeah.
Right. And then the parents can have that kind of, I'll say this. If I hand out a note before an eval, these are the 5 things we're going to be looking at today. All right. Or these are how we're going to be evaluating your players. I find that parents actually flip and become a little more, in a positive way, critical of their kids' performance than our performance as evaluators. So if we tell them, hey, we're going to be looking at edge work today and how your kid does edges. Well, the parent's going to be watching their kid thinking, all right, well, they're looking at edge work. If your kid's having a hard time with edges, that kind of eliminates the team was picked already mentality, because now that's going on. And again, coaches and organizers, I know it's a little scary to hand information like that out. All right. Because I can understand, like, keeping it close to the chest. I don't have a problem. I just don't have a problem sharing if someone wants to know, this is what we're looking at. And when I sat down, Christie, Gabe, when I sat down for my meetings, those 4 hours of meetings, I started every conversation of, we rated everybody on a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being mastery, 1 meaning needs massive improvement on these aspects: skating, passing, hockey IQ, compete, and I forget what the 5th one was, right? Shot ability. That's what we graded you on. These are your scores. This is my feedback. Can I show you how to improve on this? No one said, well, team was picked already. No one said that to me, because I'm giving you the information. So I just think I'm talking a lot here. I'm just saying that parents, I'm going to be blunt with you. You have no idea what's going on during an eval. I'm trying to ease your anxiety, because you need to know that and stop reading into everything. How about this one, Gabe, right? Well, they split the teams up. They split them into 3 groups, and my kid's with the bad kids and that kid's with the good. You have no idea why they've done that.
Right.
No idea. It could be, they could be looking for, they might be seeing how good of a leader your kid is with the kids who aren't as talented. You have no idea why they're doing what they're doing.
Right.
Calm down. Now I'm getting anxious. Look at me again.
It's easy to get all worked up about stuff that you don't really have the inside perspective of.
Christie, I just think at the end of the day, majority, I'm not going to say this is 100%, all right, but I think a majority of organizations and coaches are really trying to do a good job.
Sure.
All right. I just believe that. I don't think coaches are out to get kids. It does happen. But it's more rare than I think we make it sound, right? Like, and how about this, Gabe? How about this for a question, right? I'll say, can evaluators and coaches make a mistake at an eval? You touched on that before.
Sure.
Can a kid get a horrible eval and it's not fair? Does that happen?
I mean, it's an hour. A lot of those tryouts are an hour long, and maybe you only have 2 or 3 sessions at the most in some of these cases. So absolutely. And a kid can have a bad day too. Here in Minnesota, a lot of associations don't allow the parents into the rink to watch. They'll put tape up curtains, or paper up, over the doors, because otherwise parents will be peeking in. Yeah. And so you don't know what that coach is looking for, like you said, but even coaches make mistakes. And unfortunately, even if your kid is placed on the wrong team, it's your responsibility to make sure that kid seizes that opportunity to take a leadership role, to get more ice time, and to become a better player and improve on what they need to improve on for the following year.
Yeah. And that makes sense.
It can be poor evaluators too.
Right.
Like I gotta say, some evaluators are better than other evaluators. And look, that's life, guys. That's going to happen in life.
Right.
I would say, I'm not going to give the life's not fair speech.
Right.
Yep. Right. But that happens.
Yeah. And your kids may have tender hearts, and it could be just so, it feels like it's the end of the world to them, right? If they don't make a certain team. But you have to really prop them up and tell them, well, maybe there's another opportunity for you with another team. And this happened with my daughter. Her heart was set on making this AAA team. She didn't make it. We found another team for her, and honestly, she probably would have sat on the bench with that AAA team for a good part of the season. This other team that we found that actually welcomed her with open arms, she ended up being the captain. She had a lot of incredible amount of ice time and developed her creativity. She became a strong, creative hockey player with leadership developing abilities, which launched her onto the next tryout she had. She made the AAA team, but that year of development was so important for her. She didn't see it at the time when she was told, you didn't make the team. It was just crushing. But it's your role as a parent to say, well, there's another opportunity for you. Let's find it. And this could be a really good opportunity for you to become an even stronger hockey player. So all is not lost if you get cut from a team. There might be another opportunity for your kid that will help develop them into this just fantastic player. And then Sophia went on to play college hockey, which, so you can turn things around.
Division I college hockey. I'll say it. I'll say it.
Yeah. So, all is not lost if you don't make a team, and it's not the end of the world. And it's really important for parents to step in and make sure their kids know that.
There's a lot of great stories out there like that. I talk to, whenever I hear parents frustrated about the team their kid's on this year, or they didn't make a team, I like to tell the story about my brother, Sam, who's now with the Avalanche, but Sam made the B team in squirts, which is like U10 or something, right? So nothing crazy there, but he made that B team. He kind of started to become a leader on that team. Sophomore year of high school, he was starting on the varsity team, but he had 0 points the whole season. He always says he couldn't do that again if he tried, because he'd pick up a secondary assist somewhere, but went on to juniors, got cut by a few USHL teams during tryouts, made a team, and got cut by that team at Christmas and went to the NHL playing in Bismarck. Right. Yeah. Mid-season, really, really kind of, we were all just distraught by it, thinking, all right, that's the end of the line.
Yeah.
And he took that opportunity. He adjusted. He set his goals for that year. I actually met with him that week and said, let's set some goals. Like, what are you going to do in Bismarck to try to achieve what you want to achieve in this sport? So he set specific goals and he hit those. And he didn't just become a better player there. He actually expanded into not just becoming a defensive defenseman, but becoming an offensive defenseman, scoring some goals and finding a new part of his game that he had never needed beforehand on those top teams. Went on to Cornell and eventually worked his way into the AHL and now the NHL, undrafted, and just a really cool story.
Wow.
But he's one of those examples of kids who, if you have the right mindset, if you work hard and you just stay motivated and have that right support system, which parents, that's your role, right? Your role is to be the support system. you can go on to whatever level you want to, and it's not always going to happen. Timing is important for sure, but that's sports. Right?
What a great story with your brother. And my son is a huge Avalanche fan, so I can't wait to share that with him.
I love about this story too is that I think one of the misnomers about this is not even just hockey, just sports in general, is it's so important to have goals and understand that those goals are going to change. And just to go from youth to pro really quick, right? In youth, it's like you could be a different height every year. You could be a different strength level every year. Like aspects of your body change so rapidly in youth hockey that it can absolutely change the type of player you're going to be on the ice. I grew 5 inches in 1 year once and went from like being a winger to a power center. Like it was like a complete change, but it helped me grow this a learning mindset. And then on the other end of it, and this is the end that kids you never think about, which you don't need to think about, when you start getting up into your 30s, if you're still playing, your body's going to change again. All right. And your things change, you slow down, things happen, and you have to alter your game to match where you're at. Obviously, you want to maintain a peak level of fitness, but 25 and 35 are different players. So that evolution is what I'm trying to say, of being better, learning, putting more tools in your toolbox is important. And I think bringing this back to the episode, you can learn some of these things in an eval, because in an eval, you can see what other people are providing, right? And I remember any time I was on the ice, Gabe, and there were players better than me, which was a lot. I tried to see, well, what are they better at and how do I get that skill? It wasn't they're better than me. Oh no. It was, I wanted to get better. Right. So I want to merge this into this for the final question here. Like, talk about a lot of interesting things today, but I want to talk about technology as a tool as well, because everybody's trying to get better. Right. And there's never been as many ways to get better. Tech has become a part of every aspect of sports now. Right. And I'm wondering, with tools like TeamGenius, how do they fit in the eval process? And like, what should technology help coaches do better? Right. And because there's human decisions, and now we'll use the word AI, which not everybody loves, but there's human decisions and then there's non-human decisions. Right. How's TeamGenius doing that? And what is your thoughts on that? Like what decisions should humans be making versus, technology?
Well, we've always steered away from making a decision for an organization. Like, we could have built in an AI tool that forms your teams for you, but we're not going to take that responsibility, because at the end of the day, there are certain roles that each player needs to play on a team. You need to fill on each team. So I don't think that it's our responsibility to do that. Now, what we've done with TeamGenius is, over the last 10 years, we've worked with thousands of organizations, and we've gathered feedback from every single one of them. As soon as a tryout ends, we ask them, what did you like about the tool? What could we improve on? And what we've created now, and what I think others should be doing, whether it's with TeamGenius or just in your Excel spreadsheets or whatever systems you're using, don't just stop after tryouts. Do the coach evaluations to gather additional metrics on your players, communicate that to them. We just actually launched a tool now where you can have the players assess themselves, player self-assessments. That's something that I think hockey associations could take from soccer clubs out there who are really big into player self-assessments. That way you can make sure the coaches and the players are on the same page, and you might be able to identify some of those players who maybe think they're a little bit better than they are, or think that they're totally unflawed and just the best player on the team. So you can get ahead of some of those things if you are asking for the feedback from the players, from the coaches during tryouts, and bringing all those together to create an overall picture on each of your players, tracking their development year after year, doing some sort of camp or combine in the off season to help them see the improvement that they're actually getting from playing with your program. So I think evaluations goes so far beyond just tryouts, and more people need to start to adopt that. And really that's what's going to lead them to supporting their players in better ways.
That's interesting.
It's a great way of looking at it, because that side of things is not going to stop evolving. Right. And
where do you see it going, Gabe?
I think we're going to see more and more quantitative metrics with trends. Actually, so we were acquired 2 years ago by a company called Human Powered Health, who does athlete testing and longevity testing in three labs across the country. We've got a location in Edina, Minnesota, Boston, and Scottsdale. And so we're seeing a lot of athletes show up to our labs for think like NHL combine type of testing. And they say, I want to get to the next level. I want to go D1, or I want to go to the pros, or I'm in this pro league and I want to get to the next level. Whatever it is, they show up and they want the data on their body, because we're starting to understand how to use that data in order to help the players develop and show normative metrics, because there's more of this data being collected. So you can tell them, based on your VO2 max or your Wingate test, rather, this is how you compare to Division I players. So you need to improve your cardio, or you need to get stronger. Your first 3 strides are so important. So force plate testing is one of those that we do for these athletes. And I think that's probably where we're headed, is more quantitative metrics being captured on even players probably age 14 and up. And that's sort of what we're starting to prepare for. So I do feel confident that's probably the direction that this stuff is going.
Yeah, I'll say
that's a lot.
I always like to give this when I think that's fantastic information. And I think with the parents listening specifically, I know parents that will hear that and be like, well, I got to get my kid into max. And the thing is this, like, it's data, it's information. All right. Follow me, parents. You want as much information as you can get to help your kids improve. The key, though, is the kid has to want that too.
Yes.
All right. So if you're dragging your 14-year-old to a testing site and the kid's like, Dad, I want to watch the game.
Exactly.
That's, you got to be careful. That parents, that's an ego thing. That means it's your dream, right? But now if my kid comes up to me and goes, Dad, listen, there's this training facility that's got all this tech. It's going to tell me all these things about myself. I really want to do it. Well, that will pique my interest as a parent.
Yeah.
Right. But the kids got to want it, gang. They got to want it. You got to just, because this is exciting information for me as a coach. Like, oh, wow, I could really use this. Kids got to want it. I just want to make sure we say that. Right. But it's amazing stuff, amazing technology. I'm going to say it again. This is only going to evolve. So the other thing we got to talk about is parents don't ignore it. Right. Don't. The most dangerous phrase in the English language is, this is the way we've always done it.
Right.
You hear an organization say that, run. Right? You don't want to hear that. The stuff that Gabe is doing in the gang over at TeamGenius is not just the future. It's where we're at now. Like, the top teams are doing this. So, Gabe, just fantastic stuff. I really appreciate you joining us today. I think this is a really engaging conversation, not just about the technology, but how parents, coaches, and players should be looking at evals, how a good eval looks, how a bad eval looks. It was a fantastic job today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you both shining light on this topic. I think it's really important. This is how we keep kids engaged and parents engaged in hockey. And I'll steal a phrase from one of my good friends, James Murray from Everything College Hockey. He says, this is the best game in the world. This is the most exciting game. This should be the biggest game in the world. The only way we continue to grow it is by supporting the kids however we can. And I appreciate you both being a part of that.
Well, we appreciate you too.
Gabe,
as well.
thank you so much. What a great conversation. We really shared some important information, and the timing is perfect as we headed to tryouts now for so many kids.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, gang, we're going to put the TeamGenius info in the show notes. If you're not, if you're here still, you probably want to get that. So go ahead to the show notes and you can learn more about TeamGenius. But that's going to do it for this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Remember, you can email us, team@ourkidsplayhockey.com. You can text us via the link in the description for this episode as well. We love hearing from you. We get a lot of messages on the back end now. I do want to let all of you know that we only get a short amount of characters to respond. So if you want to email us, make sure that's how I can give you a full response. Otherwise, you're going to get a very short text back from us. So that's where we're at today. But for Gabe, for Christie, I'm Lee. We'll see you on the next episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Take care, everybody, and have fun playing the best game in the world. Take care. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.